Welcome to Design Speaks, a podcast that helps you use uncommon inspiration so you can overcome creative block and make better work. I'm your host, Brandy C. Joining me is my co-host, Julie Hyder. This week, we're going to be talking about how to get more of the kind of work you love to do. Stay tuned for that, coming up later in the show. Hi, Julie.
Hey, Brandy.
So, per usual, I think I'm just going to ask you a weird question every week. I have a weird question for you.
Okay, cool. I expect nothing less.
Okay, good. Now the bar is not too high. So have you ever eaten anything like a snack or a candy or something like that you like really loved and decided that that's what you wanted all the time and ate way too much of it and now you're just like over it?
I've definitely done that with food where I'm like, I'm going to eat this every day for lunch for 2 weeks. And then after that, I'm like, I don't want to eat that for like another 6 months or more.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, do you know Jelly Bellies?
Yeah.
Well, do you know the butter popcorn one?
Yes, I have mixed feelings on that one.
Most people don't have mixed feelings. Most people are like, gross, butter popcorn, jelly bean. So when I was in high school, right outside the movie theater, there was a Jelly Belly stand where they had all the kinds that you could like get a bag.
Yeah.
You could like get a bag full. So I was going to go to a movie with my cousin and she and I like thought, let's get some candy before. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to like kill two birds with one stone. And instead of getting popcorn and candy, I'm just going to get butter popcorn jelly beans. So I got like massive bag of butter popcorn jelly beans. Ate them through the whole movie. I was so sick.
Oh gosh.
I was so sick. So I didn't throw up or anything, but the whole point of this like weird conversation is doing work that we know how to do or even sometimes like. If we do the same thing too much, we're gonna get sick of it if it's not something that like is nourishing, is like good for us. And
which jelly beans are not.
Jelly beans are not. Yeah. Contrary to popular opinion, it's not a good idea to eat a bag full of jelly beans. It's not fulfilling. It leaves us feeling sick sometimes. Like you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach when someone asks you to do something and you feel bad saying no, but you really don't love doing it. But you do it anyway, and then you do just feel like icky. Yeah. And so we've all been there, and that's what we're going to talk about today is how you can do more of the work that you love, more of the stuff that nourishes you, and does not make you sick like a bag full of jelly beans. So, but first, before we do that, what have you been up to these days, Julie?
Yeah. I am planning a road trip right now.
Oh, jealous.
Yeah. I haven't traveled anywhere since a very long time.
Yeah.
A very long time last year. Yeah.
Besides to the grocery store, that doesn't count.
Yeah. I mean, these days, I guess that is a trip.
Yes, I get to go pick up groceries at the pickup.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm going to be working in southwestern Colorado later this month. And so now that we have a Jeep, we're going to do some off-roading there for a few days. Super excited about that. And then we're going to head from there to California because we're both really missing the ocean. It's like, it happens every year. Like we get to a point where like, we haven't seen the ocean. We haven't been swimming. Like
for those of you who don't know, there are no oceans in New Mexico.
Not even
short
close.
Supply here. Short supply of ocean.
Very short supply. Yes, I do love New Mexico, but as they say, we are a beach with no water. Yeah. We're just the sand.
Yes. Oh, yeah, we won't even go. I could go off on so many tangents about that, but yeah, I too, I just in general am missing traveling. Like, yeah, I'll take really anywhere at this point that looks different from this. So, again, I love it here too, but I'm very jealous. So you're going to have to give all the pointers when you get back to like how traveling a road trip type of thing looks during like COVID
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out, like planning wise, and like all the things we need to take, and it's just going to be different. So it'll be interesting, but
Maybe you can be
I'm
like
excited.
quasi-documentarian and take a lot of black and white photos to like document the journey of a road trip during
Yeah.
the time of coronavirus.
I have been wondering, like, are photojournalists out there taking pictures of all the like how weird daily life is
Oh,
now,
yes.
like how you have to stand in line to get in a grocery store and all of that? Because I
absolutely
feel
believe
like,
they are.
yeah,
I told Kenny, and this is a complete sidebar, and then we'll move on. But I told Kenny if I could do anything else, I could easily see myself being a photojournalist. Like, because it's like you get to tell a story with like a single picture.
yeah,
As opposed to just capturing a moment, which is great. And I love that. And that is totally needed. But I just love this idea of capturing like a story in a picture that's like black and white and gritty and like using film and going back and like developing it myself. It just sounds like so much fun. Anyways, so yeah.
Well, so speaking of, what has been inspiring you lately?
Besides photographing people in masks on the street in black and white.
Yeah. Speaking of black and white, again,
I don't know how I keep doing this.
We're wearing black and white shirts with sleeves.
With sleeves because fall. Yeah.
Yeah. How's this happening?
I don't know because we're great. Yeah. So what's been inspiring me lately? So it is planner shopping season. For those of you who are not planners, it is a shopping thing. Like, it is an ordeal. There are so many planners you could get out there. There are literally like planners for your Enneagram type, or like planners for moms, planners for homeschool moms, planners for small business owners. Like, it is kind of actually like an oversaturated market, to be honest. However, I've been using the same one by Ink and Volt for going on. This will be my 5th year, and I love the way that they put them together for like the purposes that I use. They are perfect, but you guys know how I am, and I'm always looking for a better way of doing things. And so just to make sure the Ink and Volt is still good for me this year, I've been researching lots of planners, and what kind of came out for me inspiration-wise is I've been trying to put together various workbook ideas for the process, for going beyond color theory, for finding inspiration, like things that people can like keep on their person or put in their pocket or whatever. Yeah. So as I was researching planners just for myself, I ended up like taking some deep dive detours into like the how we do it pages of these planners, and looking at like how they think through the content on these pages, and like the usability, and showing like how some of them lay flat and some of them have spirals, and like some of them just have the staple in it because they're meant to be used only for like a couple of weeks, and then you put it on a shelf. Yeah. There's just like so many things that go into it. And as somebody who's done a lot of editorial design of like magazine type things and book covers, I have not done like a deep dive into the interior design of like a planner. Right. So it's just been really inspiring to see the process of how that works, and a little overwhelming because it is a lot. And so I do have a lot to work through before I think something like that can happen for me to be able to create. But I was just really inspired by the fact that there are so many, and there's basically a planner for everything. So it reminded me of the idea that like there can be a lot of something that I want to do, but because I'm going to do something different, there's still room for me in the market. So that was inspiring, and that was encouraging. So
that's cool.
Yeah, that was something that I've been into right now. So as far as things I've been listening to this week, well, always I'm listening to French music. Always listening to French music. So I did not bring the lyrics to read to you, but the song is called Pays Imaginaire by Polo and Pan, which is a group that I actually found on a soundtrack for the Good Girls show on Netflix. And I chose it because honestly, like, it's in French and I didn't quite know what it said at first, but when I translated it, it talks about basically using your imagination and the magic of like being with somebody that you love and sort of eating and holding hands and laughing with each other. Ultimately, I really loved the sound of the song again, but it's a little quirky and the lyrical romance kind of just did it for me. So if you want to listen to it, and I recommend that you do, you can check it out on our playlist on Spotify Music from Design Speaks Podcast. And I don't know how many hours are on there now, but there's
Probably a lot.
like 2 days straight of music, which just makes me so happy.
You'll never need another playlist again.
I mean, you said it, not me. So it's not egotistical to say that it's the only playlist you need. So, okay. So let's talk about not getting sick over the work we do.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've in the past talked about knowing your target market, and more recently we've talked about like how for them to find you. And so now once they find you, like how are you going to make sure that you're getting the kind of work that you want? Instead of like, I mean, honestly, we've all been there where you're like, this is paying the bills, but I don't like it. It's not filling you up creatively, which we've talked about last season of like, it's super important to be doing work that you love. Otherwise you're going to start feeling depleted and your work isn't going to be as good. So you don't want to get to that point. So
yeah. And I realize it's a luxury though, like for us to think. And so please, for those of you out there, especially like during this down economy and stuff, like don't take this as if you are doing work that you don't love, like that's bad on you by any means. Like, just, I have, like you said, we've all been there where we're just doing the lamest, stuff because we have to pay bills. But you should always make sure that like there's something there for you to really grab onto to fill you up creatively. So continue. Sorry, I totally interrupted you.
No, that's a really good point to make. And it's not like you have to feel shameful if you're, doing that kind of stuff. Like we've all been there and it's a process. So we want to work towards just doing the work that you really love to do. But that doesn't mean that, that's the ideal. That doesn't mean that we're all already there. And it won't happen
overnight. Like even in a before COVID world, like that was difficult to do. Yeah. So we understand that, we've been there, but we just want to encourage you and give you some like advice and practical steps on how you can actually possibly do this. So
yeah. I think the first step is kind of obvious, is figure out what the heck you want to do.
Yes.
It's not necessarily like an easy step, but it is very obvious.
It is obvious. It sounds easy on the surface, but like when you sit down and go, okay, well, what do I like to do? I like to do lots of things. So it's almost like the purpose Venn diagram thing that I talked about earlier in the season. Yeah. Except it's mainly looking at, what you're good at and what you like to do. So what you're good at and what you like to do may translate into what you want to do.
Yeah. So an example of that, I know it's different for designers, but for me, it was an evolution through photography. At one point, probably 8 years ago now, I was working for someone else. And so I was basically forced to do literally any kind of photography that we were hired for, and my boss would take any job. So I was doing corporate headshots, newborn photos, family photos, weddings, boudoir photos, like literally everything, product photos, everything.
You did headshots of me, so.
Yeah. Yeah. So I started to realize through that, like, okay, I don't really enjoy most of this stuff as much as I do working with couples. So, and that was just kind of a realization that came through, over time of doing all of that stuff. And I think there is also value in trying all the different things because, how do you know if you like it or not if you haven't tried it? So it was a good experience for sure. But I realized that couples were the ones that I like to work with. I felt more creative and I just enjoyed it more. So when I went to start my own business, like I decided, okay, once I get to the point where I can pay the bills, I will just
What's
focus
next?
on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I started, interestingly enough, from our last conversation, I got feedback of people saying you do really good at taking photos with a landscape and a couple in the landscape. And it kind of, and then also like looking at the weddings I was doing, I was like, you know what? I really enjoy doing outdoor weddings. I don't really love doing ballroom weddings as much. Like I'll still do them, but I get really excited when a couple says, let's go take photos outside. And so it just was like an evolution of things of just getting like picking up feedback from people and then just looking inwardly and saying, this is what I like. I didn't love that experience quite so much. And then eventually that's how I got to where I am today, to being super specialized and doing adventure elopements. The size of the wedding was also something that I like realized over time of doing like over, several hundred weddings. I realized like, oh, I don't like big weddings. I don't like big wedding parties, all that stuff. So as you're moving through your work, you're going to like pick up these things that you're like, okay, I do really like this or I don't like this. And I think it's also important to say, like I could have been like, oh, I really loved working on that wedding, but like I would need to identify why.
Yes. Well, what specifically about that?
Yeah, exactly. What part of it did I enjoy? And take it from there. So it does take time. Like if you don't have experience, then how will you know? So I think, that's kind of a precursor is go out there and get some experience and then start filtering through that.
Yeah. And I think a good chunk of our listeners do have the experience. And the hard part is that you know what you're good at and you kind of maybe like all of it. Like you like to design. So yeah, I like to design book covers. Yes, I like to design logos. But then if you really, you kind of made a good point about like you didn't really like certain things. And so if you take a step back and you go, okay, well, what actually don't I like? So maybe, or maybe what don't I love? Because you might like all of it. I like doing logo design. I don't love it anymore. Like it doesn't, what is it? Marie Kondo says like looking through your closet, right? And like pick something up and ask yourself, does this spark joy?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's sort of that thing. It's like, okay, so if you think about like all of the things that you could possibly design or create on a bookshelf and you pull one down and go, okay, this is a book of poster design. Does this spark joy in me? Yes. Put that in this keep pile. And so like, I don't know why I always visualize things like this because it like actually just helps me because otherwise it feels so untouchable to try and figure out what it is that you like. And for me, the process was I don't have any real connection when I'm just doing logos, which transitioned into doing only brands, like full brand packages.
Yeah.
Which transitioned into more brand strategy because it's like even this isn't what I get joy out of. Like I find joy in explaining to the client like exactly why I did everything and why it works. And so that took me away from all of the clients that were just messaging me on Instagram saying, how much for a logo?
Right.
I just answer, I don't do logos because I don't. Like I do full brands and I do brand strategy. If a logo happens to be a part of that strategy, I will gladly do a logo for you. But you may not need a logo. You may need a Facebook ad campaign. You may need something completely different and your logo might be totally fine. So I think, for earlier in the journey, trying things is the absolute key. And then looking at not only what you like, because sometimes that's easy, but looking at what does not bring you joy, I think is really a good thing to do.
And I think also you touched on like the power of saying no. Like it's okay for you to say, no, I don't want to do this. And to send that work on to someone else who does enjoy that
Right.
That's totally okay.
Yes. And it actually is better, and it starts to build more of the community over competition idea, because
Yeah.
it's like, if you take everything that comes your way just because you're afraid that you're not going to get any work, then you're possibly taking work away from somebody that actually might bring them a lot of joy.
Yeah.
And you're actually just making your life kind of sad, because you're like, oh, another like baby photo session. Like, I'm so
Yeah.
tired of this, as opposed to, you know what? I know a really great family photographer that loves doing baby photos. And then everybody's happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's make it a win for everyone instead of, and also, if you're, taking work that you're not loving and you're, like sort of inwardly grumbling as you're doing it. And afterwards you're like, why did I do this? You're not doing your best work. You're not serving that client as well as they could be served. So it really is better for everyone to do that. And it also is kind of empowering to be able to say like, oh, okay, I don't want to do this. And I can say that, sorry,
Yeah.
I don't do this. Let me send you somewhere else.
Yes. And there's so many gracious ways, and we can possibly do,
Yeah.
Another episode on that at some point in the future. So many gracious ways to say no.
Yeah.
And, so many gracious ways to tell people what you do without being like, no, I will not design your stupid like CBD logo.
No, I hate doing logos.
I'm never like, why are you talking to me? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So, the next thing I would say in relation to this is like, once you've figured out what things you don't want to do, and even if you have like a rough idea, say you have like 3 or 4 things that you kind of are playing with the idea of, that's where like curating and comes into play, because then you can start to really, the idea is to show. So especially for visual creators like we are, you need to show people what you do. Like, you can talk about it also, and you should, and that'll be like the next step. And I'll let you talk a little bit more about that. But when you show, like when I was showing more of like the actual end product logos that I was doing, I was more proud of the process in getting there, like my word maps and the thought and the research and all of the stuff. But I wasn't showing so much of that. I was more showing like, here's the reveal of the colors and the thing. And then people go, ooh, I like that. I want a logo. As soon as I started showing the process and my book covers and poster designs and the things that actually do really bring me joy, I started getting more of that kind of work. I was showing art that I did for musicians, and then I got more musician clients.
Yeah.
It
I mean, we're
works.
such visual people. Like, somebody's going to go look at it and be like, oh, yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. If I'm showing like that all I do is take photos, because I do take photos. It's a hobby. It's not what I do like for you. But if that's all I did, people would get the impression that I was a photographer if I never showed or talked about the fact that I do design and coaching. So
yeah.
there was a thought there, but it left me. So it happens.
I have a good friend who is a wedding stationery designer, and probably like 5 years ago, I remember her saying, I am so tired of doing black and red invitations and burlap invitations. She's like, I hate them so much, and I keep getting them. And we were talking about like how, New Mexico is kind of behind the times on wedding trends. And so we were kind of like inadvertently blaming it on like, oh, well, it's just how it is here.
It's this place.
Yeah. And then she had the epiphany of, oh, I should stop showing those in my portfolio. Just because I designed it and I did a good job doesn't mean somebody needs to see it. And so she took all of that stuff out, and now she's like killing it and doing exactly what she wants to do. And she's kind of a trendsetter now, which is really like her thing. And she finally realized, like, I need to be showing this stuff that I want to be doing. And so she's like treading sense. Wow.
Treading sense. We're both sense. Like just like sticky mouth today, I guess.
Oh man. She is setting trends and really big on Pinterest and doing like all kinds of amazing things and like creating new niches and everything.
Is this Teresa?
No, it's my friend Devana
Okay.
from Funky Olive. Yeah. But yeah, her business is just like blown up and completely changed directions. And it all started with her realizing I need to stop showing the stuff I don't like to do.
Yes, absolutely. So, I guess we may just skip around a little bit, actually. You do need to know how to talk about what you're doing. So we'll save that for last.
Yes.
But I want to interject right here because it feels right that what if you don't have any clients to do to
Yes,
show
that's
the
a
work
really great
you love?
question.
And that is one of the number one questions that I get from students, from like fellow designers, from even designers that have been doing it as long as I have. It's like, yeah, I want to illustrate children's books, but I don't have any books. I don't have any book clients. I don't work for a publisher. There's no one that does that around here. New Mexico doesn't have jobs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, okay, well, who's stopping you from just doing something of your own?
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like a weird mental like leap you have to do that you don't have to wait for it to come to you. And I think that as designers and creative professionals, as business owners, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, we are used to having to try to get people to come to us before we can do something, as opposed to going, I have ownership over my creative life. There's tons and tons of public domain things that you can use to make your own work. If you don't feel like you have, like, we'll just say children's books for the example, like if you don't feel like you have a story in your heart, like one, you could find somebody that has a story that probably needs illustrating, or you can just take one that's illustrate your version of Cinderella or Pinocchio or any number of things that are just like out in the ether that you could just grab onto.
Yeah. If you're just waiting for like this dream client with a dream project to come along, it's going to be a while.
It will probably never happen. Let's be honest.
You're going to be waiting a long time.
Yeah.
When I decided that I wanted to switch from doing traditional weddings to doing adventure elopements, I put up on my website. I wasn't as savvy on all
SEO.
This website and SEO stuff back then. But I put up like a thing specifically for adventure weddings. And I was just like, man, why is nobody wanting to hire me for this? Well, I was still showing like photos from, church weddings and weddings with a bridal party and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until I like sat down with a mentor and she's like, you need to cut all of this out of your portfolio and you need to only be talking to those people. Otherwise, those people aren't going to find you. And even if they do, they're going to be like, oh, this isn't what I'm looking for, because they're not seeing themselves and the kind of project that they're doing there.
Right.
So you can't just wait for them to like fall out of the sky and it's your perfect dream project.
Right. And not that you need to treat people like they're stupid, but Donald Miller calls it, I think it's like the Grunt Test or something like that.
Yes.
For like, and this is more for websites, but this applies, I would say, for this exact thing that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. People don't want to use all their mental energy to try to figure out what it is that you do.
Yeah.
So even if they don't even know, like maybe there's like a woman out there that is looking for, or maybe she just has like an idea for a children's book. She doesn't know what she even needs to make that happen. She just has an idea. And she comes across your account, and your account is logos and website design and UI UX, and there's some illustrations like popping up here and there, but it's hard to find. It's hard to find the fact that you even do illustration. Then there's another illustrator that shows lots of different shots of like illustrating things. It doesn't have to be books, but just illustrating things, illustrating story type things. Which one do you think she's going to gravitate to?
Yeah.
And you could say, oh, well, I don't have all those clients. Well, you do have the ability to create something that will show them what you can do. And I have fallen out of this a little bit myself just because I've been trying to get the coaching thing up a bit more. But I still have in the back of my mind that when I'm ready to start doing more design client work again, I'm going to start showing more book cover and music designs again, because that's what I love. Like, that's what I could do forever. So that's the other question I guess I meant to say earlier is, if you could do one thing, like if you could just create, design, photograph, paint, whatever it is that you do, one kind of thing forever, what would that one thing be? And there's probably a hint somewhere in there as to like what you should be doing. So anyways, personal projects are like the best way to fill your portfolio, to show people what you do. And you also like have the ability to just tackle topics that you love. So if you want social justice and you're an illustrator, you can illustrate that. If you're a lettering artist, you could take that same topic for any number of creative jobs, titles, whatever, and take the things that you are passionate about and show people your work.
And that connects back to what we talked about when we were talking about finding your target market, is putting out your values and the things you are passionate about. Like, that's a really great way to do it. Yeah. So, yeah, sure. It's a win-win.
Win-win-win. What's that from The Office? It's like a win-win-win-win.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, talking about it.
Yeah, I think that ties into talking about it when you're mentioning the grunt test, because it's not just the visual grunt test. It's also like, can they tell from what you're saying? If you're just kind of like, I'm a designer, hire me. That's not, yeah. Over here. Yeah, that's just not, it's not very persuasive, first of all. It's not informative. And people just need to like instantly be able to see what you do and like, what are you specifically offering to them?
Yeah, and I've seen way too many people honestly approach it like, well, I put out, I said that like I'm open for business. I put out a logo design, and in my caption I said, here's what I did, and here's my email. I'm open for business. It's like, because that's really compelling.
That's like if you had a physical store and you put the open sign on.
That's it.
Well, if you've not done any, marketing or anything, like how, maybe people are walking by, but they're like, what is this place?
Yeah, exactly. So by talking about it does two things. It, first and foremost, helps you understand what you do. And that may sound silly, but when you are forced to tell somebody that has no idea what the heck you do, what you do, it forces you to think about it in a completely different way. Now, I'm not saying that you should always write that way, because if you're talking to your ideal audience, you shouldn't have to dumb it down. But you don't know what person might encounter you that may be your target audience that just doesn't have a clue about like how to talk about it. Like we were talking about in the SEO episode, it's like, well, how will they search for me? Like they don't know. They may not know what a design strategist is. They just know that their design process sucks and they need help.
Yeah.
And they have creative block.
Yes. So a great way to, if you're like looking for ways to talk about things, is to start with the questions that they're going to have and start answering those. And you don't have to do it in like a boring FAQ thing. Like not everybody's going to click on that page. Like sprinkle it in throughout your website. Put captions every once in a while like that through your social media posts. Like there's so much content that you can create that's going to be talking in a strategic and like all-encompassing way about your brand.
Jasmine Starr says, talk about your business without talking about your business.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's just so many things. So we touched on like sprinkling in information about your values that people are going to connect with. That has, more to do with you as a person than like actually the work that you do, but people still connect with that. And then, so obviously Brandy and I are really big fans of StoryBrand, but I think that's an incredibly important way to present, instead of just being like, I design book covers, hire me.
Yeah.
You need to walk the person you're talking to, which is your target market, walk them through the story of themselves, not yours. This isn't about you. Like, yes, you want to put some information out there so they at least like know who they're potentially working with. But it really is about them. And if they feel like they're being heard and you're showing them like they're in that problem stage right now, where they're trying to get to the end, but maybe they don't even know what the end actually looks like. And if you can say, I see where you're at, I see the struggles that you're dealing with, and show them like the road to get to the end, and specifically what the end is, not just like, oh, you'll be happy or your dreams will come true.
They can't grab onto that. Like, what does that specifically look like? How specifically do you help me? Just tell me. Like, I just want to know. Any person I've ever paid personally for, whether it's like a small mentorship program or I actually spent some money on a Jasmine Star, like it's like a boot camp type of thing for a short bit, because I knew what I was getting going into it. It was very clear. Here, she always says like, hey, boo boo, or whatever, like, here, I know that you feel this way. Yeah. But you don't have to. Here's why. And after you do this XYZ with me and this course, you will feel this way about your business. And it's like, okay, yeah, here's my money. Take my money. Cause
yeah, exactly. Cause you're like, yeah, I want that.
You get me. You understand as like a female business owner where I'm at. And so it was like, this is an investment. It wasn't money I just had to blow. It's not like I'm just like waiting around waiting for like, oh, where will I spend my money today? Like,
right.
And so think about how you would feel when you are looking for something that you need, and then think about what you offer. And it doesn't have to be a course. Like, if you are truly just looking for more illustration work in the children's book sphere, what problem do you solve for people? Maybe it's that, do you have an idea, but you like don't know how to take it from your head and put it like out visually? That's totally a problem, because I know lots of writers that have that issue. Like, I have an idea, but I don't know what to do with it. So it sits there, and then you are alleviating some problem by what you do as a creative.
Yeah. And how amazing does it feel when somebody is like expressing that they hear you and they understand what you're going through, and then they're there to help you, like in any facet of life where you're like, yes, oh my gosh, this is what I've been waiting for. So there's a huge amount of power in that. And I think the story brand way of presenting what you do is incredibly, it also takes a lot of pressure off of you, because then you're not wondering like, what should I be saying?
Right.
Or like, many of us feel very awkward, like being salesy. And you don't have to be that way, because you're not talking about yourself anymore. You're talking about the client.
Yes, absolutely. So I don't remember exactly where we record these kind of all over the place, not necessarily in any specific order. So if we have already recorded with Eric, he is my own story brand guide, that we interview. We either are set to interview him later after this episode airs, or we have already. Either way, you should probably find that and check it out, because it is bound to be an awesome conversation.
Yes,
a little bit more of a deep dive. And yes, we are fans here. I used it to completely revamp all my stuff when I shifted over to being a strategist and course creator and stuff like that. So yeah, there's nothing like being paid to do the kind of work that you love. And you will like, if you get sick of it, maybe that's time to shift into something different, because if you're doing what you love,
and that's okay too.
Yeah, there's no hard fast rule that says like, well, I said I was an independent creative director for 10 years. I can't move over because people think that's all I do. Nah, you can do what you want.
Yeah, totally.
So I hope you guys leave this episode feeling empowered and wanting to figure out how to do more work that you really love, so you can do more of it and get more clients. This is how you get more clients. So that is our episode for today. Be sure to check out our Patreon, Design Speaks podcast. If you want to support the show, want to help us keep this on the air, we would so appreciate it. As always, you can leave us a note, a DM, anything on Design Speaks podcast on Instagram. And if you'd like to check out show notes, transcriptions, or past episodes from the past, going on, 4 years now, crazy, you can find all of those at designspeakspodcast.com. And from Julie and I, we will see you guys next week.
Precious will fade in a grim mystique, but we go, oh, oh.